Joe borrowed his mama's...
That's all right, Mona. I was a his then.
Joe borrowed his mom's Buick, and right after work we drove off into the sunset, laughing and giggling and pretending like it was the end of a movie. It hadn't even begun. That was the funny part. We were playing the ending, and the beginning was yet to come. I pretended that I was Natalie Wood. I did. Yes, I did. And Joe was...
I was James Dean, pretending I wasn't Joseph Qualley.
There were nearly 4,000 people in that small town when we got there, and there were not nearly enough hotel rooms to accommodate everybody. So Joe and I had to sleep in the back of the Buick along the side of the road. Next morning, after I finished washing up in the sink of the gas station across the road, nearly rubbing my skin off with Baraxo and paper towels, I was sitting in the back of the Buick pouring this lilac perfume all over myself to get rid of the stink of the Baraxo when I saw him walking down the road right toward me.
Oh, God, I need a cold beer before I faint.
Stopped right next to the car, and he just was looking in his pockets for something, and there was a cigarette dangling from the corner of his mouth, and so I took a chance that a match is what he was hunting for. And I leaned out and I said, I got a match if that's what you're needing. And he sort of smiled, and he came over to where I was leaning out the car window, and he took the matches from my hand. And he said, "Thank you, ma'am." Just like he had been living in Texas all of his life. I had those matches for the longest time afterward. I used to sleep with them, wrapped up in a lace handkerchief underneath my pillow for years after.
Now, I'll tell you, I found a cigarette by the back wheel of Buick, and it was a Chesterfield. It's the same kind that he smokes.
Shh. I wish you'd hush up, Joe, so I can tell him what happened next.
Well, I was there too, you know, in case you forgot.
I remember everything. It was at that very moment that I knew that something was going to happen to change my whole entire life. It was a premonition, you know, like I always get. And when he'd lit his cigarette and I looked up into those deep-set, shy blue eyes, I could see myself as clear as looking into a mirror. Later on, at the place where they were picking people to be in that movie, when they picked me, out of all of those thousands of others I knew for certain.
Well, they said that I didn't look Texas enough. Now, just what in the hell is Texas supposed to look like anyhow?
They were looking for types. You just weren't the right type, that's all.
Well, you know, I look for you every time I see that movie on the TV. I never see you.
Well, it's just that Elizabeth Taylor's head keeps getting in the way. But I'm there, mostly behind her left ear. In the scene where she first arrives from her papa's plantation in Kentucky, recall that? And they have that big barbecue picnic. She gets real hot, and then she starts to faint, grabbing onto the branch of a mesquite tree for support. Well, right as the projector comes in real close to her, at that particular point, you are able to see me peeking out from behind her left ear. I felt like such a celebrity. I did. I think maybe it was the way everybody fussed over me so. And then all those people sitting around watching in bleachers, just like at a football game. My whole life was starting to change. I could feel it deep down inside me.
Oh, nah. You sound like you was the only one. Why, there were so many people down there, I had trouble finding you.
That night, as I laid there in the back of the Buick, I kept thinking about how I had been chosen above all of those thousands of others, staring out the window at those millions of stars and the outline of that very beautiful house way off there in the distance. And suddenly, as I'm looking, I see that one of those stars explodes, and it burst away from all the thousands of others, and it fell from the sky, landing behind the front of the house, behind the front of Riyadh.
Mona, are you going to tell?
Mona, are you going to tell?
Are you really going to tell?
Are you really going to tell?
I pulled my blanket around my shoulders. I started to walk to where the star had fallen to earth. When I got up to the front gate, there was nobody there. There was nobody, no guards, and nothing. And so I walked that long walk down the road to the house. It was so quiet. It was so still. And the only sound was from a faraway train. And it's blowing its whistle and chugging off into the night. I got up to the front steps, and this voice, this is coming out of nowhere. It says to me, "Isn't it a little late to be calling on your neighbors?" And I just froze stiff as a post, because it was him. I knew that. I knew that the minute that I heard his voice. And then he said, "Don't just stand there being unfriendly. Why don't you come on up and set a spell?" And as I moved up the steps, then I reminded him that I was the one who had given him the matches that morning. And we spent the whole entire night together until the sun crept up over the edge of the earth, turning that sky into it was the brightest red you ever saw. We walked together to the gate, and he kissed me for the 13th time. I had counted them so that I would remember every single one. And then he thanked me again for passing away the night with him, and we both walked away in separate directions. Halfway back to the Buick, I just burst out running because I couldn't wait to tell Joe of my memorable night.
Gee, Mona, that's not the way it happened at all, is it?
Next morning, you know what? Next morning we had to leave real early because Joe had to have his mom's Buick back. You recall that, don't you?
From that night, a son was born.
Did you hear that?
Hear what, Juanita?
Thunder. It sounded like thunder.
I think I heard it too.
Praise God, he hasn't forgotten us.
It's just Stella Mae's stomach rumbling. Give me a beer.
It's coming closer. Do you hear?
Maybe it'll rain.
I hope not. Just had the car wide.
Oh my God, Mona! Come here quick. It's Jimmy Dean, and he's driving off in that yellow sports car.
No, not Jimmy Dean. He don't even know how to... Jimmy Dean! He don't even know how to drive. Jimmy Dean, you come on back here, boy. You hear me? Come on back. It's your mama calling you. Come on.
I'll call the highway patrol. Maybe they can stop him before he hurts himself.
I'll do that.
God, I don't know. Hello? How on earth did he even get that car started, Juanita?
You'd be surprised what that boy can do, Mona.
He must have learned how to drive working over at Luke's
Just a boy go off
Texaco.
in my Porsche, license Porsche, Porsche, 19. I don't know the color of his hair. Look, it's obviously
See,
not a theft. We
What
know
did you
him.
mean by that mysterious
A
remark?
yellow Porsche, license plate MX309. We'd like it brought home.
I hate that song, Stella Mae.